Grocery store, and grocery store once again. What's up, 23% Nation? This is your man, Coach D. Today, I'm back with the Success Saturday video series, where here we talk about exactly how to be successful while on the 23% Challenge meal plan. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive just a little deeper. All right. Now, for all of my Success Saturday video series, I always have objectives, meaning things I want to accomplish, meaning things I really want to share and teach you. So, that being said, my short-term objective is Coach D's tip. A little bit of help, a little bit of advice, a little bit of did you know? Now, my second objective is rather long-term, and that is to save 1 million animals. There you have it. Beautiful, huh? So guys, let's dive into Coach D's objective number 1, which is short-term, and that is to go to the grocery store, your local grocery store at that. Now, here's what I want to do with today's video. I want to offer you a few things that I believe can help enhance your grocery shopping experience. Now remember something, guys. We're here to learn how to become successful while on the meal plan. So going to the grocery store will definitely help you be more successful while on the 23% Challenge meal plan. So first things first, make a list. That's right, guys. Make a list of all of the plant foods that you're going to purchase. Now, remember something. Your list needs to have variety, meaning it needs to cover all 5 food groups of plant foods. Now, don't worry. As you are going through the process of creating your meal plan, meaning your meals and snacks, you're not going to leave out any fruits, vegetables, herbs, or spices. You're not going to leave out any legumes, meaning beans and peas. You're not going to leave out any nuts and seeds, and you definitely aren't going to leave out any whole grains. So make sure that while you are preparing your list that you have all of your plant foods on the list. Also, we're going to talk about the produce section. We're also going to dive just a little deeper into the freezer aisle. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the canned good aisle. Now, yes, remember this list is to help you be successful while on the meal plan, but guys, we're going to dive deep. I'm going to let you know the pros and cons, ultimately the advantages and the disadvantages of each of these listed here. So, without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, first of all, let's talk about making a list. Now remember something, all of your plant foods need to be written down on your grocery shopping list. All of your fruits, all of your vegetables, all of your beans and peas, nuts and seeds, and whole grains. First, let's talk about the advantages of making a list. First things first, a grocery list will save you money. Remember something, guys, that the average person spends approximately $13 when eating outside of the home per meal. Now, when it comes to meal planning, the average person is going to only spend about $4. So there you have it, guys. It's a $9 savings. Also, making a grocery list will help save you time and energy. It's also going to help you reduce waste. And it'll help you lose weight. Now, I know a lot of people are interested in losing weight, and that's a great thing, right? So guys, if you want to help yourself lose a little more weight, then go ahead and create yourself a grocery shopping list. Also, it's going to help with meal planning, and it's going to help you remain focused, meaning you won't be distracted by what's up and down the aisles. You won't be distracted by your kids or your husband or your wife, or maybe even someone calling out local sales within the grocery store itself. And believe it or not, making a grocery shopping list actually helps to improve your memory. Interesting, huh? And last but not least, having a list will help you feel good. Why? Because it gives you a sense of accomplishment. As you're pushing around your buggy and as you're putting your items in your cart, then all you have to do is cross them off one by one. Now, guys, let's take a look at the disadvantages of having a grocery shopping list. Number one, it prevents impulse shopping. Now, some of you may say, well, Coach D, isn't that an advantage? And yes, I agree with you. But we have to look at the other end of the spectrum. Some people enjoy impulse shopping. So if you do, then yes, that will serve as a disadvantage for you. Next up, making a grocery shopping list does require discipline. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to be disciplined, and that's okay. So, if you're the type of person who doesn't like a lot of discipline, then yes, this will be a disadvantage for you. Also, guys, it holds you accountable. Once again, a lot of people don't like to be held accountable for their actions and their thoughts and their words. Well, guys, when you make a list, it holds you accountable. In other words, it holds you responsible for what you're purchasing. Also, it limits your spending. Now, I've been listening to a lot of YouTubers, and something that I found out is that a lot of people like to spend a lot of money in the grocery store, believe it or not. But by making a list, it's actually going to save you money. It's going to reduce your spending. So if you're the type of person who loves to spend a lot of money in any and every grocery store that you go into, well, for you, this is probably a big disadvantage. And last but not least, having a grocery shopping list will help you avoid distractions. Now, as I mentioned, as far as the advantages are concerned, it helps you stay focused, which is the opposite of being distracted, right? So if you're the type of person who loves to be distracted, whether it's with the people that you're with or maybe it's by your phone, then yes, this will definitely serve as a disadvantage for you. Now, let's talk about the produce section, ladies and gentlemen. 23% nation. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to give you the pros and cons, the advantages and the disadvantages of shopping in the produce section while you're in the grocery store. First up, advantages. All right, number one, nutrients are expressed through color. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed that when you're in the produce section of your grocery store, how colorful it is? As a matter of fact, you can probably find every color of the rainbow. Well, here's something that you probably didn't know, is that the more colorful the fruit, the vegetables, the nuts and seeds are, believe it or not, the more nutrients they contain. As a matter of fact, color is the nutrient's voice. It's speaking to you. It's saying, hi, come here, buy me and eat me. Here's another advantage of shopping in the produce section for your meal plan, is that the produce section is going to offer plant foods that are low in sodium, low in fat, low in cholesterol. As a matter of fact, there is zero cholesterol. And guess what, guys? No preservatives. Another advantage is that the produce section is going to offer you a whole bunch of fiber. Now, if you've been following Coach D for a while, you already know that fiber is what I like to call nature's plumber. Also, there is freedom of selection, or we can use the word variety. Guys, just take a look. Not only will you see a lot of colors, but you're going to see a lot of options, a lot of variety, right? So go ahead, pick until your heart is content. Also, availability. Now, this is kind of like a double-edged sword in that oftentimes the produce section will offer fruits that are in season, and then they'll also offer some fruits that are not in season. Also, low prices. Now, of course, this depends on your perspective, right? So that's why I always say, make sure you set up your budget of anywhere from $20 to $100. Also, another advantage of shopping in the produce section is that no ingredient list is needed. Why? Because when you pick up that apple, when you pick up that banana, when you pick up that cantaloupe, that onion, that sweet potato, right? That's the only ingredient that is there. There are no preservatives, there are no additives, nothing extra. It's just the plant food itself. Therefore, no ingredient list is ever needed. All right, let's now dive into the cons, or shall we say the disadvantages of shopping in the produce section. Number one, too much variety. Yes, it is very possible that you may experience paralysis by analysis, right? But remember something, you have your list with you. So even though the produce section may offer a huge variety of plant foods, just stick to your list and you'll be in and out in no time flat. Next up, spoilage. Ladies and gentlemen, 23% nation. I have definitely been a victim of spoilage. One time I ate some bad mushrooms and oh my God, it was over. I literally had it coming out of both ends. Now, I know that may be a little offensive, a little too much information for some people, but learn from Coach D's experience. One way to detect spoilage from plant foods is to smell it. That's right, guys. If it smells bad, then not only is it going to taste bad, but then ultimately it's going to be bad for your body. So please watch out for spoilage. Another thing is that depending on your budget, sometimes the produce section may have very high prices. Now, normally this occurs with fruits and vegetables and other plant foods that are not in season. So that's kind of a quick guide to help you determine your budget. If you're selecting plant foods that are in season, then yes, the prices will be lower. However, if you're selecting plant foods that are not in season, then probably the prices will be higher. Also, here's something else that you have to be careful of. Careless handling by other customers. Now, guys, I've seen it, and yes, I'm even guilty of this too. Sometimes I pick up an apple, sometimes I pick up an orange, sometimes I pick up a grapefruit, and maybe it drops on the floor, right? But I'm the type of person who says, you know what? I dropped it, so not only do I pick it up, but that's actually the one that I purchased. But everybody's not like that. So guys, you may want to be careful, especially when the produce section is bustling with a lot of potential customers. And last but not least, another disadvantage of the produce section is that oftentimes the fruit or the vegetables or whatever it is, right, they're harvested before ripeness. Now, you may not know this, but when you harvest a plant food before it's fully ripe, unfortunately, the nutrient content is slightly lower. So yes, if it's harvested before it's actually ripe, then the nutrient content is not going to be as well as it could be. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that we've talked about making a list, right? We've talked about the produce section, the pros and the cons. Now let's dive into the freezer aisle. Why? Because this is another section that you can shop in while in the grocery store. So let's talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of shopping for frozen plant foods. First up, the advantages. Number one, quick, healthy fixes. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't stress to you how many times I talk to parents who are looking for something quick to fix for their kids. Well, guys, if you want something quick and you want something easy, then just walk on over and shop in the freezer aisle. It's very, very convenient. And believe it or not, oftentimes the plant foods are already cut for you. So there's less preparation, and so that's why it's quick and healthy. Next up, it's cost-effective option. Remember something. If you are on the lower end of the budget scale, right? Maybe you can only afford 20, 30, maybe $40. Believe it or not, selecting frozen plant foods can be very, very economical, right? In other words, you get a lot of bang for your buck. Next up, no additives. Remember something, even though freezing is technically a form of processing, you don't necessarily need to add a lot of things to the frozen plant foods. Freezing in and of itself is good enough. Also, what you'll come to discover is that frozen plant foods, in particular frozen fruits, they maintain their shapes. Now, this is a negative against fresh plant foods, is that if you don't eat them as soon as you can, then yes, they do have the ability to spoil, rot, and lose their shape. Trust me, I know. So guys, allow this to serve as a reason why you would want to purchase frozen plant foods. Also, no compromise on nutritional quality. Now, here's a really good thing about frozen plant foods is that they are picked at their peak of ripeness. That's right. And so guess what? Because they're ripe, the nutrient content is very, very high. So that's why it says no compromise on nutritional quality. Next up, preserves water-soluble nutrients. Now, in particular, we're talking about the water-soluble vitamins, such as all 8 B vitamins and, of course, vitamin C. So, if you're the type of person who's looking for vitamin C and all 8 B vitamins, then yes, you definitely need to eat frozen plant foods. Also, believe it or not, when plant foods are exposed to heat, light, and oxygen for an extended period of time, well, that helps to deactivate a lot of the nutrients. But here's the good thing about frozen plant foods is that freezing prevents exposure to light, heat, and oxygen. So, take that in consideration the next time you're walking up and down the freezer aisle. And here's something else that we need to remember, is that freezing, although a form of processing, it does preserve the nutrients. So, if you're the type of person who is looking for iron, maybe you're looking for calcium, and maybe you're looking for a little bit of plant protein, then go ahead, eat directly from the freezer aisle. All right. Now, unfortunately, it's not all good when it comes to frozen plant foods. So let's talk about the ugly and the bad. First up, now yes, as I stated before, freezing is a form of processing. And now here's something that you have to understand, is that whenever any plant food undergoes any type of processing, yes, there is a loss of nutrients. So here's what you have to remember, is that freezing helps to mitigate these losses. It helps to minimize the losses, but there are some losses nonetheless. Also, you need to read the ingredients list carefully. That's right. Guys, understand this. A lot of times, food manufacturers, they like to slide in and sneak in additives and preservatives. So that's why you have to be careful about reading the ingredient list. As a matter of fact, here's one quick guide. If you're buying, let's say, frozen Brussels sprouts, then when you read the ingredient list, the only thing that should be on the ingredient list is Brussels sprouts. If it starts listing any other chemicals or words that you've never heard of before, then don't buy it, all right? Always remember, if you really want to eat healthy, especially during the 23% challenge meal plan, make sure you're not putting additives or preservatives in your body. Also, here's something that you that you definitely want to take heed of, is that you want to avoid long-term storage. Now, in my reading, I've come across a few articles that basically say you don't want to store your vegetables any longer than 3 months in your freezer. Now, here's what you have to remember, is that you don't necessarily know how long that bag of frozen corn was in the grocery store before you bought it. You see? So when you buy it and you take it home, you don't necessarily want to store it for that much longer. So in other words, even though it's frozen, you do want to eat it as quickly as possible. But make sure that it's not in your freezer beyond 3 months. All right, now that we've talked about making a list, we've shopped in the produce section, we've shopped down the freezer aisle, let's now venture down the canned good aisle and see exactly what's going on. All right, first up, the good news, the pros, the advantages. Number one, they are affordable. Now, let's go back and revisit our budget. Remember, your budget is anywhere from $20 to $100. If you are on the low end of the scale, then I gotta stress that canned plant foods are probably gonna be very appealing to you. All right, why? Because ultimately, they're gonna be the cheapest. They do offer convenience. Once again, if you're looking for something fast, something quick, then yes, canned plant foods are definitely convenient for you. They do have a long shelf life, meaning you don't necessarily have to eat them within 1 day of purchase. You don't have to eat them maybe within 1 month of purchase. As a matter of fact, canned plant foods can last years. Now, for some people that may be good news, for other people that may be bad news. Ultimately, it depends on your perspective. Also, another big advantage to plant foods is that they are easy to store. Just think about it. Open up your pantry. Look inside of your cabinets. You have shelf space, right? Well, all you have to do is put them on the shelf, right? So yes, canned plant foods are very easy to store. Now, let's talk about the bad. Let's talk about the ugly. Let's talk about the disadvantages of canned plant foods. Number one, high in sodium. Guys, remember something. Sodium is a preservative. Now, here's what you got to understand, is that technically food manufacturers, they don't really know how long it's going to take you to actually get in your store, drive to the grocery store, buy the can, put the can in your pantry, and then finally eat the food. They don't know that. But what they do know is that when you finally decide to eat that food, that it needs to be fresh in some capacity, right? So in order to maintain that freshness, guess what? They add a lot of sodium. That's right. Now, physiologically speaking, sodium does a really good job at increasing your blood pressure. So ladies and gentlemen, if you suffer from heart disease, maybe you've had a heart attack, maybe you've had a stroke, maybe you have high blood pressure, guys, canned plant foods, or any food for that matter that's sold in a can, is probably not a good investment. Also, these canned plant foods are high in sugar. Now, I don't necessarily want to belabor this point for too long, but I will say this. Guess who loves sugar? Cancer cells. That's right. So even though the food may taste good, well, your cancer cells are also enjoying it as well. Next up, they have very few nutrients. Guys, remember something. Whether we're talking about freezing or, in this case, canning, Well, it's a form of processing. And so whenever any plant food is put in a can, well, guys, unfortunately, a lot of the nutrients, if not many of the nutrients, if not most of the nutrients, are completely destroyed. So this is one of the reasons why when you eat something that comes out of a can, chances are you're getting a lot of energy in the form of calories and very, very few nutrients. Now, if you do this on a consistent basis, then what you may notice is that you may begin to gain weight. And no, we're not talking about muscle weight, we're talking about fat weight. So yes, it is possible that if you have a diet that's high in canned foods, then you may become obese. And last but not least, maybe it's not last, maybe it's not least, but guys, think about it. The food's going to taste differently. That's right. And it's primarily due to all the chemicals that are added. Remember, the purpose of the can and the food is to make sure that it has a long shelf life, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to taste good, right? Think about it. Compare a fresh pineapple to a canned pineapple. Trust me, the taste is very different, and it's because of all the chemicals that are added to the can itself. Here's something else. Another disadvantage is that there are too many chemicals involved. Guys, I've stated this before. The canning process is a form of processing food. So whenever you put any food, whether it's an animal product or in this case a plant food inside of a can, lots and lots and lots of chemicals are added. Now, here's something else that you may want to keep in mind, is that oftentimes the chemicals that are added, well, sometimes they're banned in one country, but they're allowed in another country, right? So think about it. Do you really want to put all of these unnatural chemicals inside of your body? Probably not. So that's one of the main reasons why I don't always recommend you eating canned plant foods. Also, there is a risk of botulism. Now, if you're not familiar with this term, don't fret, don't worry. Just know that it's something that you definitely want to stay away from, but ultimately it is a form of food poisoning. And last but not least, you are exposed to tin. Now, guys, you probably have heard of all the health dangers that are associated with heavy metals. Well, whenever you eat any food that comes out of a can, you are exposing yourself to tin, which technically is a heavy metal. So, guys, do yourself a favor. Stay away from canned plant foods, even though they offer advantages. All right, let's now dive into Coach D's long-term objective, which is to save 1 million animals. Breaking news. I recently came across a website that is entitled vegancalculator.com. Now, here is something rather startling. They say that eating a 100% plant-based diet for 7 days saves 7 animals. Wow, isn't that amazing? Guys, that's one of the reasons why the 23% challenge meal plan is only 7 days. I'm looking to save 7 animals per week, or we can break it down and say 1 animal per day, right? So now that brings up a great question. Some of you are probably wondering, all right, Coach D, I get it. You want me to eat plant foods and drink only water for only 7 days? Yes, I do. But my question is, which animals are you looking to save? Well, guys, hang on. I'm going to answer that question right now. All right, so what kind of animals? Well, guys, basically there are 2 types. I'll go one by one. The first type of animal that I'm looking to save are those animals that we eat as food, such as the cows, the pigs, the chickens, the shrimp, the crab, the lobster, the rabbits, the goats, and the lambs, right? Now, the second type of animal that I'm looking to save are those animals whose natural habitats are destroyed due to the standard American diet, or we can say the Western diet, right? Here's something that I recently learned because I watched a movie called Cowspiracy. They say that animal agriculture is a two-headed beast, and it is primarily responsible for water pollution, air pollution, deforestation, desertification, species extinction, and ocean dead zones, right? Now, when we talk about animal agriculture being a two-headed beast, basically what that means are two things. Number one, we're raising animals for feed, right? To feed humans. And number two, we're clearing land to grow crops to then feed to those animals. You see? And so those two processes actually lead to all of the things that I just stated. So guys, you want to know what types of animals I'm looking to save? The answer is all animals. I need your help. 23% Nation, it's time for us to step up. Now, specifically, I'm looking for 145,000 people to join me in on the 23% Challenge meal plan. Now, guys, remember something. The meal plan is only 7 days long. As a matter of fact, it's the first 7 days of every single month, the 1st through the 7th. Now, think about it. 7 days is a drop in the bucket. And if we can get 145,000 people to do this every single month, then guess what? We end up saving 12 million animals. So guys, if you love the furry ones just like I do, right, then go ahead, make the list, go to the grocery store, shop in the produce section, shop in the freezer aisle, and shop in the canned good aisle, but only if you have to. 23% Nation, I see you. A lot of you say, well, Coach D, I want to step up. Coach D, I want to help. So help is on the way. I've teamed up with Fiverr.com, and yes, I have my own gig there. Now, there's no need for you to search. All you have to do is click on the link. That's right, it's in the description box. Now, when you get to my gig, you're going to notice that it says, I will create a 7-day plant-based vegan meal plan specifically for you. Now, here's the good news. Number one, it's customized. Number two, it's not just any old meal plan. Why? Because it's going to come with 3 special things. Number one is a nutrition report. Number two is a health assessment. And number 3 is a workout plan. That's right. Who knows? You may want to lose a little bit of weight. You may want to build a little bit of muscle. So whatever your desire is, I can definitely help you accomplish that. It's time for our question of the day, and this comes from yours truly and the rest of the 23% Nation. We have inquiry minds, so we want to know, what is best for you, fresh, frozen, or canned? Now, take everything that I said into consideration and then come up with your own answer. I promise I won't judge you. But as always, write your answer in the comment box below. Guys, I want to thank you for watching. I definitely want to thank you for listening. As always, let's eat well, feel well, think well, do well, be well. This is your man, Coach D. Now, before I sign out, I got to ask you to please don't forget to use our 3-word mantra. It's #EatMorePlants. As I've already stated, my name is Coach D. I'm signing out. Always remember to take care, God bless, and never ever forget that Coach D loves you.